All set? Diane, do you have the slide deck, or do you want me to share screen? I know Carrie.
If you are able to share the screen, that would be fine with me. If it's easier for me to do it, it'll just take me a minute to pull it up.
Okay. Same.
All right, just give me a second. As I usually say, you can keep talking while I'm doing this. Right.
Thank you.
Why is my video not working?
Excellent. Thank you, Diane.
Welcome.
Okay, given that it is 7:03, I'm going to go ahead and call this meeting of the Scarborough Public Schools Board of Education meeting to order. Tonight is Thursday, January 21st, 2021. May I have the attendance, please?
Sure. Mrs. Giftis?
Here.
Dr. Gill?
Here.
Ms. Casalonis?
Here.
Ms. Layton?
Here.
Mrs. Lindstrom?
Here.
Mrs. Seither?
Here.
Mrs. Turner?
Here.
Mr. Bennett? And Ms. Giftis?
Here.
Excellent, thank you. Could I have everyone join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, please? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We have a relatively short agenda tonight for those who saw the agenda posted online. I do have a couple of small adjustments to the agenda. One, there's no place for public comment on tonight's agenda, and so I will certainly be adding a place for public comment. There's also no place for adjustments to the agenda, but that's okay because I'm going to do that now. So I'm going to insert public comment after the Pledge of Allegiance. So public comment becomes agenda item 4.0. So with that, I'm going to open the floor to public comment for anyone who would like to speak to the board. As a reminder, please direct your comments at me, the chair, and everyone who wishes to speak has 3 minutes to do so. If you would like to speak, please raise your blue hand in the participant window, and I will be able to promote you as the speaker. Alternatively, you can email public comments to publiccomments@scarboroughschools.org, and those can be read into the public record. And I'll just give everybody a minute who may not be familiar with the technology to let me know if they'd like to make a public comment. Seeing none, I am going to go ahead and close public comment. If you could go ahead and share the slide deck. Agenda item 4.0 is Maine Teacher of the Year nominations. I really wanted to just take a minute to highlight this amazing opportunity that we have as a community to nominate a Maine Teacher of the Year. For those of you who are unaware of who can nominate, nominations can be accepted from students, parents, school administrators, colleagues, college faculty members, and members of the associations themselves. So pretty much anyone in our community who would like to nominate one of our amazing teachers. I have made that button clicky. So for anyone who has our slideshow open or would like to access it that way, you can go ahead and click on that nominate button. You can also go to the main DOE webpage, and there's a big banner for Maine Teacher of the Year. And if I'm not mistaken, our communications committee also intends to put something similar in tomorrow's district-wide newsletter. And so with everything going on and with the challenges that we've had this year, I know that I feel particularly grateful. And so I think that this is a really amazing opportunity to recognize some of our teachers. So I hope that people take that opportunity to nominate someone special. Does anyone have any comments? Okay. Agenda item 5.0 is a winter sports update. And we have our athletic director, Mr. Legage here. I'm promoting you to a panelist, Mike, so that you are able to have the floor.
Well, thanks. Good evening. Just wanted to update everybody. We've had some interesting news the last 24 hours. It's come kind of fast, so glad to have the opportunity to update you as soon as we have it. Can you hear me okay? I'm getting an echo. Okay. So we've gotten the green light to go back to in-person participation. And as you know, just like the school systems, yellow, green, red system that we have with the Department of Education, that system also was used for after-school activities. The difference was that for after-school activities, excuse me, if we were yellow or red, it meant that we could no longer do in-person activities. We could only do in-person activities if we were green. We're still in yellow right now. We've been in yellow for winter sports since January 1st. The coaches have been doing all sorts of things that were happening, last spring, staying connected with kids remotely. But last evening, the Maine Principals Association, along with several of the state agencies that oversee the community sport guidelines that are put out by the Department of Health and Human Services, basically changed the whole system for coaches, for kids, for parents. It really won't feel any different than us just being green again and going back to participation. It really won't feel any different than that. All the same rules apply, that sort of thing. For us, as administrators, the system completely changed because they decided to not use the color coding system for after school any longer. So the color coding system only applies to the academic side of school. It does no longer apply to the athletic activities programs. So as you saw in the newspaper, because there's been a lot of press about it on social media, as well as articles in the newspaper, there was an article towards the beginning of the week that talked about, if you follow it, how community programs are still able to do all the normal things that they're doing. So all the community-based programs like youth sport programs, premier programs, things like that, could be actively involved in those activities, but school-based programs could not because we had that color coding system that we were required to follow. There was some pushback about that. So yes, last night at a meeting, they decided that they're going to level the playing field, so to speak, and have one standard, not two standards, because there were really two standards. So they're going to have one standard, and how they did that was essentially wipe out the color coding system for education-based athletic programs and activity programs, school-based activity programs. So we're looking to, we're planning to start back up on Monday. Like I said, it won't feel any different to coaches and kids and the community. It'll just feel like we're kind of back in green and able to do things. Very different on our end because they're all local decisions now, whether to participate or not. The framework that we've come up with is if students are in school, then we're going to continue in-person after school activities. If for some reason the school went fully remote because of some reason related to COVID, then we would probably be looking to perhaps go remote too. It would depend on the reason in that situation. If we went fully remote because of staffing issues, then we would probably continue to do in-person activities. If we went fully remote because of COVID cases, that would be a situation where we would shut down after school activities and be fully remote. So we're going to kind of follow along with what the school is doing and make those determinations as they come up. We really feel good about the system that we already have in place for screening and for, following all the COVID guidelines. So it really was a simple thing for us just to, put together more like a letter outlining, okay, here, we're getting ready to come back now. Here's when we're going to start. Here's how things are going to go. But like I said, it won't feel much different to people. This is for club activities as well. So, we'll be sending some information tomorrow, and groups can get started as soon as they can, back to in-person things following our guidelines next week. So great news, but big news only because of the whole, that's a really major change, eliminating the whole color coding thing for after school activities. That's a big change. Questions?
Diane, did you have anything you wanted to add before I turn it over to the board?
Not at this time. No.
Okay. So for us and for our purposes, for the community's purposes, first of all, I'd like to apologize for the last minute addition to the agenda. That's not typical for our board operating protocols, but given that this news came out yesterday, we felt like it was really important to get some information out to the community tonight. And so I was, Sandy and Diane and I spoke this morning and we said, okay, we need to make an exception here and roll with the times. And so I appreciate the people who are able to attend, and I appreciate everyone's flexibility on this. Just one more little tidbit and then I'll turn it over, this is really just informational for us. This was, like I said, brand new information, and I didn't want the board to be caught off guard by information that was in the community or available to the community that we didn't have. If this is something that the board wishes to have a lengthy conversation about, or we don't feel like we have the answers we need tonight, then this is definitely something that we could plan a workshop for in the future. And so with that in mind, I will go ahead and open it up to board questions. Leanne, you have your hand up first, and then Alicia.
Mike, this is fantastic news. I'm really excited that this is opened back up. At what point do we determine if there's going to be competition? Are we going to have wrestling meets or basketball games, swim meets against other schools?
Well, I'm glad you asked that question because I probably left that part out, but the community sport guidelines actually allow for us to start all that as well. And so we're going to do a phased in system. Our kids have been, I'm sure that they've been active on their own, but our kids have been not active in our programs for a while. So we're going to use a phased in approach. So when we first return, we're going to come, when we talk to the coaches tomorrow night, we're going to come back doing what we had done when we went yellow on January 1st, which is skill work, individual skill work, strength and conditioning, those sorts of things. It's going to be a phased in approach. And then we'll eventually add competitions to that, as things develop. And then we'll be able to even look to, play some games against some other schools. So I would say within the next within the next week or two, we're probably likely going to be back to competitions. Now, you asked specifically about wrestling. Unfortunately, wrestling remains in the community sport guidelines as a high-risk activity. So that is one sport that is going to have to continue to do the things that they're doing now, which is just strength and conditioning. Wrestling will be that sport that will not get back to competition this season because it is still categorized as a high-risk sport. The competition part of things is still going to require every student to wear a mask during competition, no more than 50 students in the gym at a time. So all those same rules that we already have in place that are available on our website, if you link to the COVID page, you'll be able to see all those guidelines for winter sports. All those still apply, no spectators, things like that. All those rules are still in place. But because they removed the color coding category, we are actually able to get back to competition. We're in Scarborough, we're going to do it as a phased in model as opposed to just starting right off with everything on Monday. I just don't think that's safe. Our athletic trainer, Dr. Davis, feels that same way, that we need to do a phased in approach to, re-entry. The other thing that supports that, though, is not every school is on board on their start time and when they're going to be allowed to do games and things of that nature. So this information is so new that not every school as yet knows what they can do and can't do and all those things. So during that time, we're going to take advantage of that and do this kind of phased in approach. It's not going to impact anything because nobody's ready to do games anyways right now. So there's no impact. We're not going to lose out on anything. Nobody's ready to start with games anyways right now, and probably won't be for a week or two.
Just as a follow-up on that, Mike, where they're not going to be ready, is there talk about extending the winter season a bit longer in order to accommodate for schools as they're coming back online?
That, I'm glad you asked that too. Great question. That is another thing that came down last night as well. The winter season has a hard deadline of March 12th. That was the original stop time, and that stop time is going to continue. Now, how it was originally set up was February 27th was supposed to be the last day for regular season games, so to speak, regular season games. And then the first 2 weeks in March were reserved for if a particular league or a county or a particular geographic area wanted to do some type of postseason activity, then the first 2 weeks in March were reserved for that. What they've since done with that is they've allowed the schools and they've allowed the leagues to independently make decisions about the use of those 2 weeks in March. So theoretically, we could continue to schedule regular season games into March if we wanted to, or we could stick with the hard stop in February and then join, some type of postseason activity if we wanted to do that. We're part of a league. We want to be good league members. And so we're going to, see how this flushes out within our league as well. Again, this information is so new that our league has not had an opportunity to even reconnect and say, okay, how is the season going to go now? How are we going to do games? What are we going to do? But to answer your question with a very long answer, sorry, the hard deadline is March 12th.
Okay.
Part of that is for they don't want anything to interfere with the spring season. They're committed to the spring student athletes having a full spring season where they've been the only group to this point to not have a season at all. The other part of this that I'll tell you while it's on my mind is they have decided to move forward with that wedge season that I had mentioned when I had done a previous board workshop, board presentation. So on February 22nd, is the schedule. We'll see if it does happen. Everything changes daily. But on February 22nd, the plan is for unified basketball as well as volleyball to have a wedge season. That would go, their hard stop time is April 16th. Their regular season will go to April 9th. Their hard stop is April 16th. Unfortunately, that's going to have some overlap, which is going to create some facility scheduling issues. But we think that we've worked through that and have a plan for that. So two reasons for why they're holding on a hard deadline for the winter season.
And I have one last question. I'm so sorry. I'm like full of them today. There was also talk in the wedge about football having a contact season beyond the 7-on-7. Is that still in the works?
Yeah, football, the football season was not so much during that wedge time. It was actually going to be a summer activity. And believe it or not, there's a proposal out there that was put out by the Coaches Association to have a football season that started in May and actually ran through the first week in August. It would run through the end of July, and then the first week in August is when they would do the Lobster Bowl game. The traction for that has slowed a little bit because there's multiple layers of concerns there. One concern that I've expressed is the close proximity of that season ending, and then the regular fall season the next year starting. We literally would have less than 3 weeks between seasons. That just doesn't seem safe to me with such a high contact sport like football. The other issue for me was the fact that we were doing all of that for really what was going to be 3 games. The schedule only included 3 games. The third part of that for me was the equipment reconditioning. Part of our insurance requires us to recondition the helmets, shoulder pads, and things of that nature. The window for getting that done is going to be very, very challenging if we try to do that summer football season and then have everything ready for the start of the regular season. I just don't believe the company would be able to get our equipment back to us, for the start of what would be a normal fall season. So I'll be honest with you and tell you that, I'm certainly a big supporter of all the sports, but that one set me back a little bit. I think the roadblocks are going to be much too challenging to overcome, for that. But we'll see. We'll see how it goes. If they offer a season, we'll certainly figure out a way how we might be able to be involved in that. No question.
Great. Thank you so much.
Yep.
Go ahead, Alicia.
Thank you. I just have a couple of questions and then I have one comment. So I'm assuming this applies to middle school and high school, is that right?
Middle school is a little bit different, only because unfortunately their league has not come together in what they want to do with their season. So middle school basketball season will certainly be able to get going. I don't know if they'll end up with games because the middle school league hasn't really come together on how that's going to all work. They just had their first meeting yesterday. So they've got some meetings left to do to figure out as a league how that's going to work. Our plan is for middle school basketball to start Monday. We're going to have our call out meetings with the kids like has been our protocol during COVID, to meet with the kids and go over the guidelines before they get started. As you know, we didn't even start the winter season with middle school like we did with high school, so they're kind of behind on getting started. So we are going to start that on Monday. I don't know how the second winter season is going to go because our swim team, for example, swims at the Portland YMCA. The Portland YMCA right now, and all YMCAs right now actually, are not opening their pools to outside groups, only for their membership. And that's been the problem with some of the high school programs not being able to do swimming this year because of that. We've been really fortunate because we swim at Cape Pool and they've kept it open and they've kept our spot for us. So we've been really fortunate, with swimming at the high school. It has not been an issue for us, but it has been an issue for many schools. It will be an issue for middle school. We won't have a place to swim, for example. Wrestling at the middle school is in that second season. It's the same situation as the high school. Wrestling is a high risk sport. It just won't happen at the middle level.
Thank you. And just so everybody is aware, are there other high-risk winter sports identified other than wrestling that will not be competing this year?
Not winter sports.
Okay. And then
Indoor, I'll just finish up with saying that indoor track is another concern. Indoor track is a concern at both high school and middle school. And this is the unfortunate part of this sport. It's not a concern to do the sport because it's an individualized sport and it actually could be done. The issue with track is facilities. USM is not going to open. There's no place to do meets for indoor track. There's no place to just service that many kids. We could not do an indoor track meet with just our kids there because we have too many. We have over 100 students that participate in indoor track at the high school. So we would only be able to take half our team to a meet and we'd have to be by ourselves. And so the problem with indoor track is facilities. Same thing with middle school. Middle school has traditionally used the Portland Exposition building. That is not going to be available to them for indoor track meets. So we will likely do a similar sort of thing with indoor track as to what we're doing at the high school right now. It'll be skill work, strength and conditioning, opportunities to connect with the coaches, but there likely will not be meets. And that's more facility related than it is COVID related, really. I guess.
Okay, thank you. And then my final thing is I would like to just advocate for as much normalcy as possible for the senior night, for those kids to have some ability to celebrate if possible. I know that there's the 50 individual maximum, but I'm wondering if there will be some sort of buffer. And then in addition to that, I did hear feedback from parents about like a raffle system, knowing that there is the possibility that they may not be able to attend, but just if that's a possibility that we could brainstorm so that people could try to see their kids in person. I know that's really important to a lot of families. And so it's something that I just wanted to bring up.
Okay. Thank you. I feel really good about doing that. I think we had success in the fall. I did not hear anybody that was disappointed with how we handle it in the fall. They certainly didn't come to me, or they certainly didn't express anything to their coach. And so I feel confident that we'll be able to do something that's safe for everybody and the best possible way that we can do it.
Do you think that you might be able to have spectators on like a raffle basis?
I can't answer that right now.
Do you think that you could keep the board updated on that?
Sure.
Thank you.
Thanks, Alicia. Shannon, go ahead, please.
My question about a longer season was asked and answered already, but I did just want to echo the excitement. This is great news for our students and our families that participate in the sports and extracurricular activities at school. It allows them some sense of normalcy. And I know I speak for myself, but I know there's others in the community that are concerned with the mental health aspect of COVID. And so this is a great piece of news we can deliver. And then lastly, I just want to thank you for, you mentioned a few times student safety, and clearly that's at the forefront of your mind. And I greatly appreciate that. So thank you for your help and your assistance.
Well, thank you for saying that. I'm sorry this is the first time we're meeting too, but congratulations on being on the board. I appreciate you saying that, and we worked really hard to behind the scenes to put some systems in place to, ensures everybody's safety, the kids and our staff. We're very fortunate that we have 90% of our students participate in some school-sponsored after-school activity. If we can keep kids engaged in those activities, I think that's going to, in Scarborough anyways, because of that participation rate, is going to have a large positive impact on social emotional well-being.
I couldn't agree more. Thank you.
Thank you, Shannon. Max, go ahead, please.
Okay, thank you. So I don't know if you already said this because I was slightly late because I had internet issues, so I apologize. But in terms of activities, I know I'm doing the one act play right now. So like it'd be really nice if we were able to meet in person, especially since we're only doing like 1 or 2 person scenes or whatever, or like different clubs like Key Club or NHS at the high school. Do you have any like updates on those meetings?
Yeah, we're going to be sending information out to the club advisors, just like we do the coaches. The informational letter that's going to be sent out to them is for both clubs and athletics. The things that I talked about at the beginning of the meeting that you might have mixed, Max, was the fact that this applies to all after-school activities. So still following all the governance that we have to follow in terms of mask wearing, social distancing, how many we can have inside, still following all those rules. Club programs will be able to return to in-person activity, just like athletics. Now, I will also say that some of our club advisors have been worked very hard and have been very ingenious about creating systems that no matter what, they'd still be able to do things with kids. So for example, I may be saying her name wrong, and I really apologize for this. Dr. Nato will help me, but Diane Vadiatis. Sorry, wonderful person. She is running our drama at the middle school, and they actually selected a play that is set up to do virtually. So they'll probably continue to do that. They may have some opportunities to get together in person for other reasons, but the whole premise of their play is to do it virtually. The Oak Hill Players, as you know, Max, has done they're pretty well finished up. In fact, I just saw Mrs. Doherty this evening because Dr. Nadeau and Superintendent Prince did allow them to, film that last. They had one component left, one little component left to film one student finishing their part. And so we did get permission for them to do that. And they're actually doing that this evening right now as we speak. And so I had an opportunity to speak with her tonight, and that production is going to be fabulous. I've seen bits and pieces of it, little snippets of it, and I think it's going to be wonderful. And now we're able to get that finished too because of this last component. So I will say that we'll still see some groups doing things virtually. I probably, if there's any good that comes out of COVID, it has been everybody's education around being able to do things virtually. And so it helps keep the momentum going a little bit. So there will still be some things that are done virtually. Some of our club advisors at the middle school are doing their teaching full-time virtually. So they have to continue to do their clubs virtually. But, we will see more and more of those activities being able to come back in person. To answer your question, Max, with a really long answer, sorry.
I'm sure Max is thrilled by the answer. And so.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Does anyone else have anything they'd like to say? Okay, I'm not seeing any hands. Mike, thank you so much for making time to be with us and to give us this update. And I'm sure we will be inviting you back.
Okay.
So the updates
I look
coming.
forward to it. Thank you very much for the time.
Thank you very much. Okay, moving on to agenda item 6.0 is new business for this evening. In our packets, you all received the middle school winter coaches. And so I would like to ask for a motion to approve the middle school winter coaches as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Is there any discussion? Seeing none, I think we're ready to vote.
Sure. Ms. Giftis,
Yes.
Dr. Gill,
Yes.
Ms. Caselonis,
Yes.
Ms. Layton,
Yes.
Mrs. Lindstrom,
Yes.
Mrs. Seither,
Yes.
Mrs. Turner,
Yes.
Mr. Bennett,
Yes.
and Ms. Giftis.
Yes.
Excellent, thank you. Agenda item 7.0 is a motion to go into executive session pursuant to 1 MRS 4056A for the selection of the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, otherwise known as the DEI Steering Committee, not to return to public session.
So moved.
Second.
Is there discussion? The only thing I would like to say before we vote is that members of the committee should anticipate an email from me tomorrow, either way. And so if you apply to be on the committee and you are selected, you will be receiving an email inviting you to join the committee. And if you are not selected this time around, you will also receive that email confirmation. And with that, I think we're ready to vote.
Mrs. Giftis,
Yes.
Dr. Gill,
Yes.
Ms. Caselonis,
Yes.
Ms. Layton,
Yes.
Mrs. Lindstrom,
Yes.
Mrs. Seither,
Yes.
Mrs. Turner,
Yes.
Mr. Bennett,
Yes.
and Ms. Giftis.
Yes.
Okay. And agenda item 8.0 is a motion to go into executive session pursuant to 1 MRS 4056C for the purposes of considering a contractual proposal for the superintendent search, not to return to public session.
So moved.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion. Okay, so the only thing I would like to say before we vote is that our hope is that we are able to confirm the selection of a superintendent search committee this evening. Oh, am I frozen?
You're
You're
back.
okay. Yeah.
Okay, I have the hotspot going and everything. I apologize. And so we are not returning to public session this evening. So there will be no community announcement about the selection of the superintendent search. However, if we do agree to enter into a contract, I will put that on a future agenda and be able to present a timeline to the community at that time. And with that, I think we're ready to vote.
Super. Mrs. Giftis,
Yes.
Dr. Gill,
Yes.
Ms. Caselonis,
Yes.
Ms. Layton,
Yes.
Mrs. Lindstrom,
Yes.
Mrs. Seither,
Yes.
Mrs. Turner,
Yes.
Mr. Bennett,
Yes.
and Ms. Giftis.
Yes.
Excellent. Agenda item 9.0 is adjournment.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Go ahead.
Mrs. Giftis,
Yes.
Dr. Gill,
Yes.
Ms. Caselonis,
Yes.
Ms. Layton,
Yes.
Mrs. Lindstrom,
Yes.
Mrs. Seither,
Yes.
Mrs. Turner,
Yes.
Mr. Bennett,
Yes.
and Ms. Giftis.
Yes.
Excellent. Thank you, everyone.